What's up, everyone? We are back with the Pennzoil 400 and at Las Vegas NASCAR DFS breakdown for DFS Army. My name is Kevin Allen, aka the Geek, and I've got Brady and Taco here to break down this NASCAR Cup Series race. What's up, fellas? How you thinking about this race so far?
What's up? Yeah, it's been a good weekend so far. We had a really good truck race. Xfinity race left a little bit to be desired, but we weren't far off there either. So now we've got the Cup race, which is usually the most fun of the weekend. So I'm excited.
Hell yeah. No doubt about that. So tell me a little bit about Las Vegas in general. We've had a couple races there over the course of this weekend, but give me an idea. What are we talking about? Are we back to our intermediate standard, cookie cutter track here, Brady?
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, this is the first real great opportunity to gather data about how these cars are going to race. Las Vegas is like your standard cookie cutter 1.5 mile track. We're going to see this race 6 or 7 times over the course of this year at Charlotte. We're going to see it at Texas. We're going to see it at Las Vegas. All very similar type of tracks. Vegas is moderate to high tire wear. Tires are certainly going to matter, or we assume so. It's hard to say with the new car. But in the past, the most important thing at Vegas is just speed in your car. It's the most important thing. Fast cars win at Vegas. And often the best car wins at Vegas, with some exceptions. But yeah, it's a very cookie cutter track, but it's one of the better 1.5 mile tracks. I don't know if you would agree with that, Taco, but
oh yeah, definitely. This one, Kansas and Chicagoland, RIP. Those are my favorite 1.5s.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about then the fast cars are winning this race. Let's talk a little bit about how practices went and which cars look fast, and also we can go back to last year and go, does this mean this is a Kyle Larson domination? Because he pretty much won every track of this style last year.
Yeah, very well could be. It's funny, when me and Taco went off the air after the podcast yesterday, we talked about all right, now I'm going to go get ready for Kyle Larson to lead 100 laps and win the race tomorrow. And then he went out and was clearly the fastest car in practice. So it is kind of that path. If you go down to the bottom, Geek, and practice laps, this is such a helpful chart to understand what kind of speed to expect.
Explain this chart. What am I looking at here? So I'm watching what are the key numbers? The best lap, because it looks like Larson had a sub 30-second lap and no one else did.
Yeah, I wouldn't focus on any singular data point in this. What we're looking at here is practice laps in order chronologically, and the times they ran. So a lot of people, when they make their lineups, they look at single lap time, 5 lap time, 10 lap time, and 15 lap time. This gives you a much more honest representation of what those numbers really mean. And you can get into the minutia and look at the number specifically, but from a high level, just glance, and you're looking for outstanding runs, clumps of green. That's my first indicator to look deeper into a driver. If I see an unusual standout clump of green. So of course the first one that stands out all the way at the top is Kyle Larson's first or last run. That is speed.
That's insane.
That's insane what he's doing right there. There's a long clump of green, and if you want to get further and deeper into it, you can look at the lap times: 29.8, 29.9, 30, 31, 31, 33. He's scrubbing off about 1/10 a lap, which is tire wear. But it's not wide. What you want to avoid, what should send off some alarms in your head, is when it's inconsistent, when it's really green and then really yellow and then yellow again and then really green again. That's a driver who's not comfortable in his car. You want to find these clumps of extended lengths of green. So Larson stands out, Blaney stands out, Bell stands out, Hamrick stands out a little.
Reddick a little
all
bit.
Of Hendrick, every single Hendrick car.
Reddick, of course, standing out. So that's how I use this. Obviously, you can get deeper and deeper and start to understand, okay, when did this run start? Did he have new tires?
Look at Hamrick, dude.
Yeah, Hamrick clearly has some speed. And obviously this Hamrick, if you touched them up at the top of this list with the big dogs, he wouldn't stand out at all. But among his peers, the Harrison Burton, the Ty Dillon, the Greg Biffles, he certainly stands out in a huge way.
Now, he's got a little bit of a higher starting position, but, man, I love this chart. This is fantastic. By the way, I didn't even know this was here. Just, like, opened my eyes to have we always been doing this? Because this is great.
Well, we haven't had practice.
That's right. Wait a minute. We never had practice. Look at Christopher Bell, too. So Christopher Bell looks dominant as well. Very deep greens here. Bowman a little bit. Tyler Reddick, who I don't think is going to be a popular play. So this is a really great chart, guys. I love it. I didn't even know this was here. Spectacular.
Those practice times led right into qualifying too. I mean, Larson and Bell 1 and 2.
There's a lot of
this is a track where it translates pretty well.
Sorry, Taco. There's a lot of context to this chart, and it certainly isn't the gospel, but it has become over the leading into when we lost practice for the pandemic. This was a super invaluable tool to me. This is like the thing I look at the most, and this is a Taco exclusive. You're not gonna get this.
Yeah.
On NASCAR.com.
You don't. These statistics are statistics that are exclusive to DFS. Listen, this is why it's understood that DFS Army and Taco's technical breakdowns, and of course all of the cheat sheets and everything. It's known that this is the strongest in the industry by far. On that note, I just want to send out a congratulations here to some big winners from the Truck Series. This is very unusual in general for DFS, but not unusual for us. AFAM, my boy TK Moss in Discord takes it down, 20K winner. But he had he had some DFS Army company with Vegas Vidi taking 2 spots in the top 5 and Dirt Mini taking a spot as well. You got one little awesome old guy snuck his way in there. I don't know what he's doing here. One of these people don't belong. Get the fuck.
And we hit
out.
hit the winner too.
What's that?
We hit the winner at 25-1.
Smith. That was ridiculous. I watched the trucks breakdown, and you guys gave out Chandler Smith. Was it Chandler Smith as the bet? It was 25-1 or 15-1.
I think Brady said first pick to win.
It was 15-1 pre-race, but I snagged him at 25-1 in race. I put that in Discord.
It's ridiculous. GOAT level betting as well. If you didn't watch the breakdown for the trucks and you didn't get that bet in, that Brady and Taco both agreed on.
It was Taco's pick, to be fair. I just saw the 25-1 and I knew how sharp Taco is. So
to be extra fair, Brady said either Smith for his winning pick.
Yeah,
and
you
the
said
final
it too.
lap was Smith passing Smith for the win.
You said it too. So you guys were both talking up the Smiths. You talked up the speed of the Smiths, and something that, that's a consistent thing that I've noticed here on these races so far to start the season is that the speed in practice seems to be predictive.
It depends on the track, but this is one where we've seen just over the years historically that the practice translates to the race here. This is probably one of the top 3 tracks for that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just a real quick glaze. Listen, this is stuff we already know. I don't even have to do it. But once again, laps led is going to be a big factor in a race like this. Would you guys say 1 or 2 dominators is the key? I'm going to only go 1 dominator because I think there are a bunch of guys starting really far back that might make their way up and get to those kind of positions.
I think starting position matters less here than other 1.5 mile tracks because if you've been looking at these sheets for a while, you'll notice usually at 1.5 mile tracks, the 1st through 10th starting spot usually has significantly more average fantasy points than the rest, but it's kind of an even breakdown all the way from 1st through 25th because it doesn't really matter where you start. It's all about who has the best car, and you can easily make your way to the front here. Like it's somewhat easy to pass, at least compared to other 1.5 mile tracks. You see the same sort of thing at Kansas, and it really just the fast cars make their way up to the front.
The numbers bear it out, fantasy points per position group. And we're not going to spend too much time on the screen, but, you don't want these turds in the back. They're not scoring well at all. So 31st through 40th, although again, this race being different because we've caught a couple of elite drivers forced to the way backs due to car changes and that kind of thing. But in general, it looks like a standard distribution of points between 1st and 25th, where there's basically no difference at all in how many fantasy points they're scoring. So, I think you throw starting position out the window. And as you guys just said, focus on fast cars that are going to finish in the top 5, 7. And again, I think with the practice laps, we've really identified a couple of cheapies that we might be able to get at low ownership here that have the kind of cars that might get there. I mean, again, Hamrick all the way down here is just looking like, I know he's starting kind of high, but man, normally I wouldn't play a guy like that. But between him and Custer, they both look like they had some speed. to the point where I think this is maybe a little bit of edge. So let's see how that plays itself out today during the race. And let's just get right into this breakdown, guys. Again, big congrats, though, to AFAM, aka TK Moss, and, of course, Vegas Viddy, and I don't want to forget Dirt Mini on the big finish in the Truck Series. I think Xfinity went a little haywire yesterday, but we're going to bring it back around for Cup Series. And let's get started with the aforementioned. Actually, let's go right into this. The aforementioned Kyle Larson, top of the list, fastest car, starting second. I mean, do you guys think he just kind of pulls ahead of Bell at some point early and takes this thing over?
Certainly a good chance. He certainly has a lot of speed. It seems like him and Bell are kind of the top two. I think the most likely scenario is that Larson will get the lead at some point in the first stage and click off a bunch of laps. The only thing is we've seen time and time again, Cliff Daniels and Kyle Larson content not to be leading, content to figure out their car, run where they need to figure out how to get their car as good as possible for the last stage. But ultimately, I think Kyle Larson's kind of going to be in the top three all day, and he's probably going to get the lead in the first stage at some point.
Perfect. And real brief with Elliott and Logano, these two guys both are sort of like not standout plays. They're starting kind of high. Didn't really show much speed in those practice laps, so I'm not seeing a whole lot of a reason to play these two other than GPP getting different. Taco, any sort of insights with Elliott and Logano?
Kind of like Elliott, just because Hendrick is fast across the board and he'll be so much lower than Larson, that kind of begs the question: is he really that much more likely to dominate than Elliott? With Larson, like I think he's certainly the favorite to win by a long shot. I mean, the odds reflect that. And he's going to rack up the fast laps and stuff. I don't think the lead laps are like as guaranteed as they would be like last season. There are still some uncertainties. We've seen some guys set up really well, just kind of miss early on. We still don't know exactly. It's not super predictable yet. We're still so early in the season, but like Larson is completely fadeable if that's your prerogative. Most likely is going to be a really good play, even if he doesn't dominate. It's not like he's 12 plus K where he has to like do too much. He needs to rack up fast laps, some lead laps, which I think he'll collect along the way. And I think there'll be at least one run where Larson is out there up front. That's probably all that he really needs.
My issue with the fade, Taco, is you're not really, he's not really projecting as the supreme chalk. So like, I get it, but at the same time, we're going to get to some chalkier guys that actually didn't have much speed, or that I think we can make a stronger
the play stiff guys.
Yeah, that you can make a stronger fade argument, because we are seeing that like the play stiff isn't the end all be all. So we'll get to those guys, but like, I could see doing that more than Larson at 35%. Like, I don't want to fade that at all. I don't want to fade that at all. If that's what he's going to be, and he's sort of the fastest car, and he's dominated these type of races last year, I think you play that. At the very least, you kind of go and match it. I think there's an argument to be made for going over the field on someone like that, maybe. But I don't know that at 33, at 33, 35%. By the way, I just did a really awesome video on ownership leverage, which everybody should check out. And it's on the DFS Army YouTube channel. It's a really, really short but awesome video on just how leveraging ownership is always a plus EV move, and it explains it in mathematical sense. So make sure you check that out, guys, as well. If you're watching this, make sure to check it out on the DFS Army YouTube channel. It's a recent video posted there. But yeah, 35%. I don't know. I don't know about that. What about, but Elliott and Logano, anything stand out about them to you?
Kind of like Elliott a little bit more than Logano. I'm kind of taking a stand where like Penske is historically absolutely crushed here with Logano and Keselowski. They have like terrific track history. I'm thinking more along the lines of track history fading this week, it seems, just because Hendrick and JGR seems to be the teams with the speed. I mean, Penske is right there. I think Elliott would come in just slightly lower owned than Logano, maybe. I don't know. The price is kind of weird for Elliott. That's probably what holds him back, because he's priced almost like Larson, and he was not nearly as fast in practice, and he's just going to come in way lower owned.
He's just slower.
I mean, we saw him dominate, or both these guys dominated a little bit last week. I think they picked up like 5 and 7% of the dominator points.
Yeah, I mean,
and
you
then
could
Larson had like 14% or something.
if you just go by the practice, you could. I mean, he's clearly not as fast as Larson, and for the same price, I think again, this to me is exclusively.
He's like a single entry play. He's probably a really good single entry kind of contrarian
GP
dominator play.
Yeah,
Logano is probably the more conventional play because he's really good at specifically at tracks where horsepower matters a whole lot, and he's like good here. He's won like 2 of the last 3 spring races. He did well last week. So I think they're fine. It's just like Larson stands out way better. Blaney was way better in practice than these guys. Kyle Busch obviously is a place differential. So it's like Elliott and Logano just kind of go by the wayside. I think a lot of people ignore them because of their price and there's just so many better options around them.
What happened to Kyle Busch? Why didn't he practice? Did he crash? Well, like what happened? What happened here? Why is
he had a tire. He had a tire go down, and without the inner liner in the tire, a tire going down means that you spin into the wall, and he ate shit. So he's in a backup. Again, I don't think he's finished a race this season. He's constantly having issues. He had overheating issues last week. He's had tires go down. He's wrecked. Like it's been a disaster. Every practice for him, everything this season has kind of gone wrong, but it all ends up in a perfect storm of him starting in dead last.
So let's talk a little game theory on Kyle Busch here, right, guys? Because this is what this is really the ownership leverage spot. This is the thing. All right, Kyle Busch is basically in a situation here. Doesn't matter how fast he drove. None of that's relevant. The only thing that matters is it's Kyle Busch driving and starting 37th. If he finishes this race, he will be in the nuts lineup. I'm fairly confident of that, right? So, do you play?
Yeah, unless like 2 expensive guys like split dominate this race, but I don't think that'll happen. I think it's more likely that there's like one pretty decent dominator and then like a handful of secondaries.
You could squeeze Busch, Larson, and one more kind of potential dominator into a lineup together. That's the problem. So it's like
you go like Bell, Larson, Kyle Busch pretty easily, or like Reddick or something. There are those kind of plays that open it all up. It's not that the guys at the very top, like Elliott, Logano, Larson, are all the most likely to dominate. That's what kind of makes this slate interesting, especially Bell at 8,200. That really changes things.
Where is who's the other Hamrick? Yeah, so I mean, look, you know what I mean? Like Hamrick had a fast car. He's starting 16th. So you could already afford to make
a lot
that look pretty damn good. You know, well, I like that lineup. Nuts. Sorry, guys. Just
tail him.
Take down the tournament here real quick. While you guys
gotta tie a bunch of ways.
Gotta make sure I win.
One quick note on Kyle Busch before we get too far down the road. The backup car he is going to be in is not a prepared backup car. It's a Busch, a Gibbs parts car that they cobbled together because they don't have backup cars.
What?
So this was backup last week.
They did not load this car on the hauler with the anticipation that somebody was going to race it. It was just parts, and they had to cobble it together. Now, listen, they've had well over 24 hours to prepare this car, and Gibbs is the best in the world at this, so it probably won't matter, but it is worth noting that Kyle Busch is not in a car. Like on Thursday, this car was not ready to race. On Friday, this car was not ready to race. They got this car ready to race yesterday, and you can go on Bob Pockrass's Twitter and see they finished up like the main card was starting in the UFC, and the Gibbs guys were still working on this car. Like they were up late last night working, so I don't know if that's necessarily a concern, but it's certainly worth noting.
Somebody just asked Wallace or Custer, and
we're getting there.
Yeah, you're going by practice times though. Probably Custer. All right, so where were we? Okay, here we go. So all right, Kyle Busch. So Kyle Busch, dangerous. So I just want to. Kyle Busch, such an important play. If this guy finishes the race, he's probably in the nuts. Let's just keep it at that. It's very simple. If he gets to the end, now Kurt Busch. Similar situation, so we'll get to him in a minute. But if Kyle finishes, he's probably going to be, even if he's got a crap car, he's going to be top 10. He'll be 7th place. He'll be up in that top 10 group, and it's too much place differential. It's too much place differential to avoid, right? So it's too much place differential to avoid. So here we go.
I guess it's unless Harvick and Busch both finish well, and just their salary savings afford you to do something else with the dominators. That's the only other option I'm seeing. Or, of course, they're like There is a chance he just has a mid car because of the nature of it, or he just runs into problems.
Yeah, or he ends up 15th
That's kind of
or 14th, and he doesn't.
What you're thinking? So, you're leveraging the two options.
I don't know what to do with the ownership leverage here, guys. And that's a decision you got to make as a player, right? You got a guy who's going to be about 50, 55. If you go into the higher dollar tournaments, by the way, you got to raise these chalk numbers up. Like if you're the $180 contest, Kyle Busch is going to be like 70 to 80% owned.
Cash, he's 90 plus.
Yeah, well, borderline 100% owned in cash. You don't need ownership leverage in cash as much. But even in the $50, in the $150, the $200, those higher dollar tournaments, because people are afraid to lose it with poor decisions, there is, it makes sense to actually fade him. If you look at the breakdown I did about ownership leverage in general the other day, you'll see that anybody who's going to be 80+% owned in any tournament, this borderline should always be faded in any sort of a tournament contest, and you accept that you're going to lose them more often than not. But even just once going the other way out of 10 or 15 times makes up for all the other occasions. You'll see the numbers do show that. So there's some real reason to fade a Kyle Busch in like a 200 or 300 person higher dollar tournament where his ownership is going to spike to that 80-85% level. So keep it in mind. It's hard to do.
I tried this exact fade yesterday with Jeb Burton, who's having a lot of problems and starting in the rear. Didn't end up running well, but he just survived the race and just kind of ended up optimal just by finishing.
I mean, everybody's saying fade at lower ownership.
You just keep doing that over time. Even if it doesn't hit, eventually when it does hit, you're going to have so much leverage. That's how you win some real money.
Again, because we're getting this question over and over, I'm going to just, guys, go on the YouTube channel for DFS Army. You're on it now watching this. Hey, make sure you like, subscribe, do all those things because that helps us and it helps the video get out there. But watch the advanced DFS strategy leveraging ownership video I put out yesterday. It will open your mind and make you a better DFS player. I promise you. If you choose not to watch it, you don't care about being better at DFS, and that's fine too. I don't care. All right. So moving on here, we've got.
We need to go back to Blaney. I think he's
there it is.
Important here.
Blaney's fast. Bobby with the link.
Let's go.
That's awesome. All right. So Denny Hamlin, JGR car.
We got to talk about Blaney. We can't forget about Blaney.
Oh, shit. That's right.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let's go back to Blaney. So Blaney was one of the fast guys, right? He's starting 11th. Penske car, not, we're liking, I guess, Hendrick a little more. But tell me about Blaney here. He seems like one of the chalk plays or one of the potential dominators.
He's one of the guys that certainly showed. He was the first one that stood out to me during practice as having a fast car. Obviously, maybe a 10th or probably not even a 10th behind Larson, but he's definitely got a top 3, if not top 2 car. And this is a great track for Blaney. 2 top 5s in a row, a couple top 10s before that. Always a factor. Was pretty fast at Auto Club. He had some issues during the race. I think he probably would have been more competitive had he had a cleaner race, but it seems like he's got top 2 speed here and should be in the mix at the end of the day.
I don't see those 29s here, Brady. I don't see the 29s.
No, there probably wasn't. Larson, I mean, those are hot laps. So you put the tires on, you seal it. I mean, in the past, you would tape it up solid, but they can't tape anymore. But regardless, those 29s are qualifying runs. I'm not too worried about that. It's more overall speed. Like I said, there's no single data point on this chart that should catch your eye. It's more of a cluster.
And when you look at the averages, though, it's really, really strong.
Dark green.
You want that consistent run of greens, and Blaney has that. He's got good track history, so it kind of just checks all the boxes that I look for.
He's got like great track type history. The last few years, Blaney has showed up at every single 1.5 mile track. He's been unlucky in a lot of them, but the speed has been there constantly. Like he's been the standout driver with Penske 1.5 mile tracks when before it was always Logano.
Ownership not too high, so I really like to play on Blaney as well, and could be your secondary dominator with Kyle Larson there. If you're going
starting 11th, it's not even bad.
It's fine. Remember, play stiff is the whole deal. So, I like the Blaney play. So jumping down to Denny Hamlin here, he kind of feels like Logano and Chase a little bit to me as the sort of secondary, he's Denny Hamlin. He can get there, but doesn't really stand out. Anything more to add on him? Was he? I mean, the speed looks kind of mediocre.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin's one that I never really put much stock into practice time because he often won't go out and run it as hard as he can. He's more collecting data. He relies on the Dartfish, which is they use to compare lap times. And it's clear that his teammate Christopher Bell has a lot of speed. He'll probably get a bit of that speed overnight. I don't think he has race-winning speed. He certainly has race-winning pedigree, so he's never a full fade, but he didn't jump off the page to me. It's just kind of, yeah, you're right. It's kind of that Chase Elliott,
Yeah,
Joey
not a
Logano
standout
guy.
play. I don't even think we need to get into those guys too much. Listen, Denny Hamlin can always, the way that NASCAR ends up going, I mean, we've done this for enough years to know that every once in a while, one of these guys just kind of comes out of, these types, they just come out of nowhere and they all of a sudden are great during the race. And you're like, wow, I didn't play any Denny, or I played very little, and here he is at the end and he's dominating, and I wish I played more of him. And that's your 10-15% GPP. That's your 10-15%, like that's your GPP exposure. Just like, there's no great reason to get exposure to him, but I'm doing it because I'm trying to win a tournament.
I don't really like Hamlin at 1.5 mile tracks just because, like, especially on DraftKings, he does not push for like leads for dominator points. It's just not what he does. Yeah. He's safe and consistent and finishes 5th with like 8 fast laps, and that doesn't really win tournaments. No. And now short tracks, I'll use all the Denny Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin's that guy I always like on any sort of unusual track when it's not your standard, right? When it's a road race or a short track or some like these unusual ones, Denny Hamlin, and especially plate racing where he seems to just be better. Truex Jr. Is another guy. I don't know what to make of him this year. He used to be kind of this elite driver, and then I don't know. I feel like he fell off last year. Anything stand out about Truex? He does have a solid starting position, starting 12th, and we'll get to Byron right after him. But he's kind of in a nice starting spot. He's really popping on some of the projection models in terms of just. I think it's because the expectation is he'll finish 5th or 6th.
I think he's a track history kind of fade for me because his track history here is freaking nutty. But I think the last few years he's fallen off. At least with his 1.5 mile skill. I don't know. It's just he's not putting up fast laps. We saw that all last year, and that was kind of like his bread and butter the previous several years before that. He would just rack up those fast laps. Just not really getting it done anymore. It's kind of a play that's easy to overlook here.
He's popping on the super draft projections too, because super draft is basically kind of like scaling Martin down to almost like a mid-tier driver. They're not really pricing him like an elite driver anymore, although DraftKings is. So that's that's an interesting
that's the thing.
Contrast,
DraftKings stays pricing him up really high because their algorithm definitely looks at the last 3 or the last 4 years of data. Like 3 or 4 years ago, you played Truex here easy, 9,500.
Yeah.
Now it's like it's getting more correctly priced.
To say, by the way, to say it's track history, he was just dominating the 1.5 mile tracks a couple of years ago. Like he had that season or a couple of seasons where he just dominated the shit out of these, right? But he didn't do it last year, and
towards the end of the Gen 6 run, I think Martin Truex had such a setup advantage. That team had just figured something out, and they were very fast, top to bottom. I think they probably lost that setup advantage, at least for now, while they get used to this new car. So I don't think he stands out as much on these tracks.
Yeah, no, I think he's fadeable at that price, not really dominator threat. So let's talk about Willie Byron real quick. Clearly the number 2 car at Hendricks as of late seems to be true as well this week. All things equal, he loses to Larson, but he should be there at the end. Willie Byron, very fast car. Tracy Chapman made a song about him.
Pretty decent starting position too, at 14th.
Yeah, I mean, but Byron is very fast. He's very consistent. He's really grown into this guy that just always is kind of perpetually in the top 5. And if he stays out of trouble, he kind of finishes there. He'll compete for wins from time to time. I think it's more of the same here. He seems like kind of top 5. And like if something happens to Larson or one of these top guys, he'll certainly be there to capitalize. So I think Byron's a pretty good play.
Definitely a standout play. And you guys both ignored my Tracy Chapman reference. I'm just going to move on. Just going to ignore it. Like
it went over my head. Sorry.
Yeah.
Neither one even. Oh my God, you guys are so young. All right. Reddick to the rear. Steering issues, according to David Lines in the chat. So I haven't verified it, but we're on Reddick, so that's good timing for the info. I'm going to go ahead and say Reddick to the rear. Doesn't matter too much, but what do you guys think? We already liked Reddick a little bit. Got a fast car.
Yeah, I loved Reddick coming in. I'd have to do more research. I've never really heard they had to replace a steering rack. I assume that probably is not going to matter much. Once it's fixed, it'll be fixed. I think that's a static part. I'd have to double check that before I commit. But before that news, and even if he is going to the back, I'm really bullish on Reddick. I am like season long. I'm so bullish, and what he did at Auto Club last week was incredible. Honestly, he didn't show like breakneck speed in practice, but as soon as he got on the racetrack, his racecraft has grown so much over the last couple of years. I really think he's going to be a threat to win at most non-short tracks this year, and maybe a couple short tracks as well. But I kind of expected.
I just want to point out they've brought his price up now. He's in the elite group.
This is just where he's gonna stay.
Our edge is gone on Reddick. It's gone. They know. The people found out.
Yeah. The sports ownership will go down, hopefully.
But I still like Reddick.
All right. So I think so far what I've gotten out of the top group here, we gotta hammer through this. But is maybe some of these old school names like Truex, maybe not to get too excited about paying up for, and we kind of gotta
Byron, Bell, Reddick. These guys are really on the come up.
Yeah, and maybe consider it. I also understand from our discussions pre-show and everything else that part of the deal with these new cars is to try to level the playing field and like DFS Army style, by the way. That's like the DFS Army of NASCAR, leveling the playing field. Look, average Joes compete like pros. That's what's happening in NASCAR with this new car.
I don't think Reddick's no average Joe, but
no, but
I'll say a good sign for him is you saw yesterday.
I think Daniel Hamrick, these guys being able to hang is what I'm talking about. The Cole Custers. We'll get to that. So Tyler Reddick, what do we do with the fact that he's starting in the back now? He was starting 7th. Felt like a pretty solid play. I think his ownership will go down now that he's pushed to the rear. Does it matter at all? That's all I need to know. Does it matter? Should we say?
I think it does matter. Like last week, we saw he dominated off the rip, and that's where he got like a ton of his fantasy points at. Like he was the biggest dominator of the race. He just got wrecked out at the end, and you're gonna have to work your way a little bit through this field. So like that initial, like the big dominator upside from like early on probably isn't exactly there, but I mean, we saw like yesterday with like Gragson be able to just ride the wall and fly up the field. Like he'll be back. This is not a killer to him.
I'm ignoring it. I'm telling you right now, I'm ignoring it. I'm ignoring it. So
it probably is the move. The news is a little late though, so it won't affect ownership like too much though.
I think it will. I think it'll affect it a little bit. My mood, I'm just gonna ignore it because you know what? You're right. 15 laps in, 25 laps in, Reddick is gonna be wherever the hell he's supposed to be. And if that's like back in 7th place and hanging around, and then we have, if he's got a fast car, he's got a fast car. I'm ignoring.
Yeah, and I think he probably has a fast car, and he's a great racer. He's great at passing cars, which isn't true of everybody in this field. So
and you can't
one of my favorite bets today was actually Reddick to win stage 1. I'm not as bullish on that anymore, but still full race wise, pretty bullish on Reddick as a whole.
So here's an important driver in this race. Kevin Harvick starting 25th. He's priced down a little bit, so he's kind of giving you the little. All right, this is the fool's gold. Now, if you're playing, I think right, you're going to get 40% ownership on DraftKings on this guy who hasn't been very fast. Like he's just not. He
was slow.
He drove like he did a full practice. This guy did not like
get the most laps of anyone and couldn't find anything.
Car can't get right. It does not look good. It doesn't look good early. It doesn't look good in the middle. It doesn't look good late. So Kevin Harvick might be fool's gold, guys. Be careful. Be careful with that. I think. What do you think, guys? Just based on the practice and based on what Harvick is doing and just the general chalkiness of him at 40% owned. Is this the danger spot?
It certainly feels like it. Harvick hasn't been hasn't showed much competitiveness last week. He didn't show much competitive last week, but he's still got a great finish out of it. It seems like he's not taking to these cars as quickly as maybe they had hoped. Obviously, there's not enough data to say that with confidence, but just kind of inferring. It doesn't feel super safe to me. But I mean, he doesn't have to do much. I mean, Harvick is notorious for finishing in the top 10 no matter what state his car is in. So it's probably still a fine play. It just doesn't feel like Harvick is 100% up to speed with this new car quite yet.
Yeah, we have to see. Again, I think the leveling of the playing field with all of these cars is a negative for someone like Harvick in this spot. Like, so I think the mental adjustment that I'm trying to make here, and I want you guys to convince me that this is correct, because what the fuck do I know, is, hey, back in the day, like a year ago or 2 years ago, if the name Kevin Harvick was in the back, they just had such a better car than everyone else in general, because it was the more well-funded teams, that they were always going to make their way up to the front. These other cars just weren't good enough to hang. But now what I've seen a little bit, and again, we haven't seen the style of race, but what I'm seeing a little bit is this group down here, this cheaper zone. I'm not going to include this, but like,
they're more equalized.
Yeah, I'm not going to include Biffle in that, but this whole zone here, these guys have better cars now, and they're able to hang with the elites to the point where it's not an automatic that, like, you know, Chris Buescher is just going to be in the back, or Cole Custer isn't going to, you know, run 15th or 10th. So that's what I think is going on. That's a change, right? Harvick doesn't automatically pass this group like he did maybe in the past, because his car was just significantly better, because he was well funded. This, yeah. I think we might be seeing a seed change where it's not an automatic.
I mean, that's exactly what we talked about before the Daytona race, I'm pretty sure. Like, that was kind of the point of this package, and you're seeing it play into fruition. Yeah. Like,
I don't know,
guys like Harvick and Truex aren't just as free as they used to be.
Yes. That's right. I don't assume that everybody saw like every podcast that we've done. So, and plus I forget, like, I don't remember. So that's really important information to kind of bring up, especially with the Harvick. So moving on to Kurt Busch, core play, right? Somebody's been asking about cash plays. We cannot give out cash lineups. This is DraftKings, and we're not going to give out lineups, especially not what I would call a cash lineup on this podcast, or everybody would use that same lineup and it would be bad. But, you know, Kurt Busch stands out as a pretty big time cash play here, starting 31st. Plenty of speed in the car. Why is he starting 31st? What happened?
You know what? I forget. I get him and Kyle Busch. I got him and Kyle Busch's situation mixed up, but I think he just had a bad qualifying lap. I think they were trying to. I'll go back and revisit that to make sure, but there's plenty of speed in the car.
Yeah, his average isn't bad. So he had a 31.87. He had one very bad lap, I guess, and looks like he slowed up towards the end of qualifying, or practice anyway. I don't know
if we were crunching Xfinity while they're doing this qualifying.
I mean, why is he all the way
back? That's exactly what happened to Kurt. It wasn't anything like engine related. I think he just had a bum lap.
Yeah, I'll have to go back. You're right. We were crunching Xfinity at that time. I don't quite remember what happened, but I'll check. But regardless, there's no reason to panic, I don't think.
His practice times were significantly better than like Harvick's.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his qualifying lap here. He just lost the nose going through the turn, put up a bad lap time. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, there it is. So he had a slip up. There we go. So thank you, guys in the who are watching in the stream. That's awesome. So
those are kind of like poor starting spots that we like to see when they just get a little bit loose during qualifying, because if anything, that's just a slight driver error. It's not like the car being slow or bad or there being an issue.
I think Kurt, the Busch brothers, you know, when somebody's asking about, you know, how you start your lineup, if I was starting a cash lineup, it would be the Busch brothers and Larson as my 1, 2, 3 starting points. So take from that what you will. You got your two massive play stiff guys, and then you've got the most likely potential dominator in there, and then you got to finish it out with some cheapies to make it work. All right, so
I kind of don't like cash because everyone's going to play the same lineup. I think
it should be fairly obvious, but I think you can differentiate with the 3 cheapies that you're going to throw in there. So I think there's, you know, we'll get to some of the cheap guys like a Ty Dillon starting kind of far back, and Chris Buescher. There's a couple of really interesting ones down there. But you know, we got to run through this guy. So very quickly, Brad Keselowski, Brady, anything stand out about him starting 15th?
No, I was really concerned with his. Obviously, his track history is fantastic, perpetual top 5 guy, but he was miserable in practice. I think for me, he falls into that Kevin Harvick category. Like Keselowski's always going to get a lot out of a bad car, but he starts 15th with what seemed to be like top 25 speed. A little concern for me.
Yeah, very cheap though. Christopher Bell, Taco, starting on the pole. Good speed. What's not to like about Bell other than that he's starting on the pole?
This could be a breakout race like we saw from Reddick last week. Bell's car is super fast. The problem is the guy that starts right next to him, Kyle Larson. So he has potential. He has potential to lead stage 1. And I think he's like top 5 all night. It's just, will he be cock-blocked by Kyle Larson a bit? Potentially. Can he still be nuts at 8,200 just running second all race? Absolutely.
Gerald actually asked a really good question. Should we fade or play under the field for GPPs on these cash chalk guys? Listen, everybody's tolerance for how you're going to approach tournaments is different, but there's a lot of other chalk that seems really bad chalk. I think some of this chalk is probably pretty good chalk, but I don't think you can play all 3 in a tournament lineup and be very likely to like take down a tournament. So, but there's a worse chalk, I think, out there that we've identified, maybe with the Harvick types and the Keselowski types that look really sexy, but might burn you if their cars just aren't that great. So again, Christopher Bell, but he had a fast car, Taka. He could just lead, no?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's got a lot of potential. I mean, it's the exact kind of play you want for GPP. I do expect him to be popular because he's such a cheap dominator. And it's not like when you get like Almirola starting on the pole or something where, yeah, it's a cheap dominator, but he has like, what, a 5-10% chance of actually dominating. I think, he's in top tier equipment. He has a real chance at dominating.
Yeah, I love fading the pole sitter, but I don't know that is the play here. But I don't like this ownership, 29%. Like I will go below that for a Christopher Bell personally, because I don't love playing the pole sitter. I think they tend to get more ownership than maybe they should.
Just getting a real dom at that price, you don't see that very often.
Yeah, and 8,200 though, it's a good price for him, and he's going to have to hang in the top 5 to be in the nuts. But he could do it, but he will have to hang there. He'll have to dominate a little bit.
I already know what you're about to say, Geek. This range sucks.
Yeah, we're in the turd zone right here, so I just pointed out all 4 of them. And what I'm going to throw to you guys, rather than kind of getting too crazy with it, is just any of these 4. Even I guess Chastain starting 18th.
Okay, Suarez ran last week. Chastain's got to be a little interesting.
I mean, yeah.
Chastain's the only one that stands out here.
Chastain, did he have any speed?
He's got a little bit of speed, middling speed, but he didn't have speed last week. And by the end of Auto Club, he had poked his nose into like the top 7. He ended up wrecking towards the end of that race, so he doesn't have the finish. But if you remember, towards the end of last year, Chastain really started to find his own at these 1.5 mile tracks, and he started getting priced up higher and higher. So, I think he'll probably return to that form sooner rather than later. So okay. I think he's worth a sniff. He's not a superb play by any means.
Was that car last week the same cars they're using today?
Not the same car. True, but like,
same general car. I mean, like this setup or whatever. Is it? How last year would be like you go from one race to the next, and it's a totally different car, nothing to do with the one they had the week before. Is it? Yeah. Is that what's going on here?
I think they're similar cars. I don't think it's the exact car. Like the different track types, probably maybe the same engine, but anyway, regardless, it's I think he's a fine play. I think he's got a top 10 ceiling for sure, probably.
There we go. I'm just going to jump past this group. I think some of the ratings speak for himself. Eric Jones does stand out a little bit better.
He crushed last week. He dominated.
He did great.
That dude as fast as a motherfucker.
And now he's starting 23rd.
Yeah.
The only thing with
Eric Jones, speed in practice, but
he had speed in practice last week, and he had speed in the race. This week he didn't have that speed in practice, so it's kind of iffy whether he'll have that speed in the race. And I think he probably goes a little over-owned here just based on what he did last week. So
I like the idea. I really like the idea last week. I love following this practice chart for your, I think this might be very telling here. So, but yeah, Eric Jones, not really standing out that great, but I like his starting position and his price point. I don't know how much it matters.
And just look at his ownership. projection compared to all the people around him. Like he just sticks out in that range, so everyone's going to pile onto him. Maybe Suarez. I think Suarez would be higher owned than projected, but
one guy who doesn't stand out via ownerships, and I think stood out in his practice times, is Cole Custer. Yeah. So I mean, these guys again, Ricky Stenhouse starting 9th. You know what you're going to get there. Daniel Suarez look pretty slow.
If you look at the RS, you could see like ownership from last week too. You can kind of see where people are on.
Listen,
just on the DraftKings tab.
Live, I can't run it around doing.
Yeah, you're right. Suarez slow in practice. Obviously had a good car last week, so could improve over the course of the day, but practice times weren't super encouraging. Stenhouse is, he starts 9th. He could run there, but that's about probably his ceiling. Briscoe, he starts too high for me.
Can't play Briscoe.
I think he's probably going to be a top 10 driver this year, but starting 4th in this position doesn't feel great. And then to your point, Cole Custer did have standout speed here in practice. He starts 24th, and he's been a lot better this year. Obviously, we saw what he did at the Xfinity race. Last week, he was competitive at Auto Club. I think he ran like in the top 12 most of the race. He finished 10th or 11th. So I think there's some upside here with Cole Custer.
Here we go. And I like some of these plays down here. So we'll spend an extra minute. But Chris Buescher starting 27th. That was like an auto play for me for the last couple seasons. It's just an auto play. It looks like the field ownership is pretty high on him as well. You got him at 3 stars, saying like Custer a little bit more. This is the perfect, again, ownership leverage spot where you say, hey, same price point.
Yeah, that's all that is. Yeah. I think Chris Buescher's a fine play, but Cole Custer, I'll give up the 3 place differential points for the fact that he was a lot better in practice, and I think his form's a little better.
Yeah, I love that. That is the perfect reasoning to play. I mean, that's what you want to – in DFS, this is what you want to identify. 2 guys, very similar price, similar upside. Maybe this guy has even better upside, but at 10% ownership, all the leverage is there. I promise you this. There will be a 10% owned guy in the Nuts lineup, probably 2 of them. That's just how these races go. There's always a couple of 10%ers in the Nuts. So when you're playing the 30%er, just understand that's not the 10%er you need for your Nuts lineup. So you're trying to win tournaments, you're going to need guys like this that aren't highly owned. And again, similar upside to Buescher, similar overall, actually looks better, but less of a name. Everything about it screams play Custer over Buescher in tournaments. But Buescher, I think, is a fine play as well. Anytime Buescher's starting 27th, you have to be aware of him. He's one of these guys that tends to,
he's a good cash play.
That is
consistent.
I'm just noticing that's a typo right now. That GPP cash on Chris Buescher should be on Buescher, not Bubba.
Oh, I was going to ask about that. Yeah, Bubba's starting a little high to be a cash play here.
Cash.
Bubba, let's we talk a little bit about Bubba here in the 23X car.
Yeah, a Gibbs car. It's a Gibbs car.
Yeah, is that Michael Jordan's team?
Yeah, I actually that's obviously a typo here, and okay, Bobby beat me to it. Thank you, sir.
Bubba,
he's not a oh no, he put it back. I will fix it. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Yeah, Bubba Wallace isn't a cash play, but I think what Bubba Wallace does really well is and especially at tracks like this, when he has a fast car, he gets his car exactly where it should be. And I think he has like a top 12 car here. He had good practice speed. I think he's had a rough start to the season, so people might be more hesitant to play him. But this is a Bubba Wallace type of race through and through. I think he has top 10 upside. And even if he doesn't, this is a top 15 car that I'm pretty confident Bubba Wallace will have right in the top 15 for most of the day.
Yeah, it looks like he got a pretty decent times here towards the end of his run. And on the flip side, though, and this one is bizarre for me, Justin Haley, you do have him sort of as one of the better plays, but man, his speed looked really bad. No,
actually looked pretty good for Justin Haley, considering he's Justin Haley.
And my bullishness on him came from the fact that his teammate Daniel Hamrick was so fast, so he's going to steal some speed from Hamrick. Haley's a good driver, and he starts 28th. I think maybe they had separated setups. Let's find out what works, and whatever works best, we'll put in both cars. So chances are he comes out with that Hamrick speed.
I feel like it's always hopeful that the teams, that goes on, but I don't know how often it winds up translating.
Yeah,
like, why not just play Hamrick?
I mean, the teams actively try to, whether or not it works.
Yeah,
I mean,
it always works out. Why not just?
We've seen it happen before.
Oh well, I do see why not play Hamrick. You just do it, right? So 5-star play, Daniel Hamrick. Low owned Hamrick, because not everybody has this
starting so high.
Let's hope we don't affect ownership too much here with this, but not everybody has this chart and really understands what's going on. So Hamrick, very fast car, starting 16th, cheap guy. Normally you fade guys like this. This is normally a fade spot, right? 5-star
top 10 practice speeds on a 5K driver. I don't know what's not to like there. Almost doesn't really matter where he starts.
There's context. It could be what's called pretend speed, which is, just he had got a good run at a right time, had super open track, and was just hot lapping. There's all these context to it, but he put together a good string of laps that definitely stand out. So
it's quite a large string of laps here, guy, and really didn't look bad throughout the whole practice. This guy, his lap speed. I mean, just compare him to Harrison Burton and all these 31s that you're getting, or Ty Dillon, who looked very disgustingly slow. And Ty Dillon's usually, he's going to be chalk for the name, I think, Taco. No, nobody has this information. Like, he's going to be chalky for the name.
I think it looks like he got like the scrap car or something. Like, there's clearly a car 1 and car 2 in the
at least
the petty group.
I think there's probably a petty car and a GMS car. Obviously it's petty GMS, but there's probably a bit of a divide there. I think Eric Jones is probably a little more petty and Ty Dillon's a little more GMS. So we might not see that kind of combined speed from that team until later in the season.
And Ty Dillon did so good last week. I'm pretty sure he also didn't have the greatest of practice times, if I remember. But this week, you can see there's nothing fast about that car in practice.
Yeah,
starting 32nd. This is like your carnage play, which, by the way, Las Vegas will have quite a decent amount of carnage compared to most tracks.
Interesting. That gives you another reason, if you want to fade those high ownership guys, to consider fading some of those ownerships, right? Like we talked about that a little bit before. NASCAR, the beautiful thing about NASCAR, or the scary thing, or the horrible thing, is these guys just crash. And so, listen, every time Busch starts 37, he's gonna fucking crash, dude. Like, come on. All right. Yeah, Harvick is the most notorious for it, but Busch is starting 37. He ain't making it through this race. It's just the karma of NASCAR DFS. Like, that's just what happens. Maybe this time will be different, but every time that kind of happens, right? It feels like it's every time. So
the anti-Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, it feels like, you put him in the back, he ain't making it through. And it's not because of any more difficulty from the back. It's just like it's designed to fuck you in your DFS lineups. Like, that's what that's what happens. You want to load up. I'm going all in on Kyle.
How about Greg Biffle? Bro, I don't think we've seen Greg Biffle in DFS NASCAR since, I don't know, not back when we had the passing points. Probably not that far back, but it's been like 2016, 2017 since we've seen this dude.
And Daytona.
He came back once for at Daytona. We've seen him come back like once for a truck race or twice. But yeah, I don't really know too much about this New York racing team.
Yeah, I ain't playing this.
It's so brutal.
I love my notes. I'm stiff in the biff.
New York racing team.
If he was starting 31st or something like that, then maybe it'd be
no, stop.
Glance at it, but starting 26, no chance.
These guys are going to be laps behind. No, Greg Biffle is going to be laps behind by the time this thing is done. These are full fades. I don't even understand why McDowell is playable. Is he really playable?
Yeah, I mean, he can finish in the top 20, and it's just I'm not sure how. Like we have this theory that the rubber band is shrunken and these cars are a little more competitive. He ran like around top 18 last week, so if he squeaks out he runs 18th, things get crazy at the end, and he pushes forward to 14th, then he flirts with the optimal.
It's kind of a carnage slash.
Yeah, McDowell or Joey Gilliland, playing one of these guys opens up so much more for your lineups. But you could just probably do just as well, but just by playing Hamrick, Ty Dillon.
Yeah, Hamrick is the guy. Like, you're saving the money by playing Hamrick or Ty Dillon. I don't think you need to go down here, guys. I would be willing to say that it's highly unlikely that anybody from this 34th through 40th is going to be anywhere
So
near.
what you're saying is you can quit Corey LaJoie.
I can't quit Corey, but I mean, this season so far, I have not really been able to play my boy as much. I think he was in the nuts already once this year. So, my Colo love, it's not gone completely, but like, look at these times, man. This guy's driving at 31 and a half. He's a second and a half behind other drivers. You can't stay on the lead lap when you're doing that.
They're just carnage plays. Gilliland the same way.
Yeah, I mean, these are 32-second laps. These guys are going to have slow cars. Do you really want
to watch you can possibly go and then
fucking beat?
Balicki on down. Those actually just stay far away from.
Fade them. No need for this. Plus, I think that the new dynamic of cars being competitive is that I don't need studs and duds completely to where I need to get these 5K guys in there. Like, you've got guys who are priced at 7K or 8K who are probably really, really good situations, right? You've got this whole, like Christopher Bell at 8K. He's going to be, he's going to compete for a win. So you've got these types that are good. Cole Custer 6,700. Again, Hamrick, if you need to save money at 5,800, that has a very fast car. That's the way to go to me. Or Haley and Bubba, these guys. So.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a lot of these lineups. Like I said, when you're running on the Dom station and you've got those two guys who are the chalk, right? They're going to be highly owned, and they're going to be owned together in a lot of lineups and separate. I don't think you make a rule about not playing them together. Kurt and Kyle should both be in the nuts. Like if the race goes all the way through, these guys should be in the nuts lineup. They should get there.
Yeah, I don't think you need to make an at least two dominators rule here. I think just at least one dominator will be perfectly fine. But I don't know. There's at least the place differential plays here aren't like real threats to dominate the race. That's what kind of tends to throw those rules to the wind. But yeah, I think just locking at least one dominator. More likely Larson or Bell or something like that. And then just playing place differential along with these guys, maybe another like lap leading option like Blaney or something. And it's kind of just the way to go here.
I would include, this whole starting group, Bell. I would definitely include Ryan Blaney in your dominators, starting 11th. Like that would be if I'm forcing
even down to like Byron. Just make all of those guys dominators. Yeah. I think right now it cuts off at Truex, but I wouldn't be too mad about it using Bowman or even Byron. Just having those guys be your dominators.
And get in at least one dominator in every lineup type approach going. Yeah. I think you're good. And then again, I think my big takeaway from this breakdown is don't be afraid to play more than 2 or even 3 guys who are starting top 15 in this race. Like,
yeah, starting position doesn't really matter as much. That's kind of what we've seen from the numbers here.
Again, we have
it's just all about how good the cars are.
So we have the Kyle situation. Kyle, if he finishes this race starting 37th, what's his worst case? Like he drives a clean race and he gets to 10th. That's gonna probably be in the winner. And if he gets even higher than the 10th, and it goes from probably to definitely, you're getting in the 60. You know what? Let me see if I can bring up the tools just to show that number on screen real quick. But
it's crazy. We haven't had a good driver start in the rear here like ever. At least since 2013, we've had 0 stud drivers starting 30th or worse. This week we have 2.
Let me show you Kyle and Kurt because these are our 2 chalk, right, cash play guys that are starting in the back. And everybody's asking about should I fade these guys? Well, let's just take a look, right? So Kyle Busch, let's call it, he didn't crash. He finishes the race, didn't look great. He gets to 9th, 63. Man, that gets you there, right, at his price. And similarly, Kurt Busch finishes 10th, 55. So these guys don't need to finish high, but if he does finish high, he's in the 70s. Absolute nuts lock if Kyle Busch is in the top 5, 100%. If he's in the top 10, what are his odds now of finishing in the top 5? Let's go to we have all this information. We have the data. Let's go. Kyle Busch, top 5, 2-1. Top 10, 1. So he is
minus home field track for these guys,
What's the American odds here, Taco? Fucking translate this to American.
Well,
right?
Translate what?
2 is plus minus 100.
Or 2 to 1's plus 100. Yeah.
It's not mine. It's not plus. It's plus 100, right?
Yeah.
So he is essentially 50-50 to finish in the top 5. And if he finishes in the top 5, he is the nuts lock of the year, right? So at that point, you could say, well, all right, I'll own him 50% because I'm going to go with the odds makers' odds. But
wait, no, I lied.
10 is also in the nuts, and now we're talking 1.5, so that's minus 200.
Plus 250 to finish top 5, plus 100 to finish top 10.
Plus, okay. Is that what it is?
The odds have moved a little bit.
Yeah, I just looked.
Fucking Taco? Yeah. I don't know how to read this shit. I'm not from
I don't know these horse racing odds these fractional odds that Taco uses.
Whoa! I would never use fractional. Decimal's the way to go. Y'all are trolling.
Come on, man.
I'm Canadian and I use
American odds. I should just go right over here to implied probability.
American odds are weird. It's like
actually he does write the implied probability. That's even more important. So
why don't you just use that?
Yeah, why am I not using this?
Give me a hard time.
You're right.
What I'm literally right about.
And then I forget you write the implied
decimal
probability
supremacist
right next to it. I'm an American nationalist. I only want
1 divided by the odds.
I hear somebody.
All you ever need to do.
If I hear somebody talking in kilometers, I lose my shit on them. Like, motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding. All right. It's miles, feet. We have. All right. So 27% chance Kyle Busch is a nuts lock. As a matter of fact, implied top 10, 40% chance. So I think if you needed a reason to not go higher than 40% on Kyle Busch, that's it. He's 40% likely to make it to the top 10 according to these odds, right? That's baking in a lot of other factors, but they're giving him a 40% chance. So if you're saying, and we just said based on these numbers that if he makes it top 10, he's at 63 points. He's pretty much locked into the nuts because there'll be fast laps along the way as well. So if you want to talk about how much Kyle Busch you want, if you want to go by the implied probability, you can use this number and say, all right, I'm going to go 39% Kyle Busch. Now, where's Kurt? Let's see his numbers, right? Kurt, 30% top 10. Kurt probably needs to hit the top 10 also to be in the nuts, although maybe 12th, 13th gets him there as well because he's a little bit cheaper, but he's also starting a little bit. Let's take a look at the number real quick on Kurt. So if he hits 12th place at 8,900, do you think that like a 51 is enough for the nuts here, guys?
Pretty close. 51
right
will pretty much get you there.
This is what you should be like. If you want to use a numbers-based approach to setting up your ownerships, this is the type of number I would use. And then you could leverage ownership however you want against this. But if you go by the assumption that Kurt has a 30% implied probability of a top 10 finish, and Kyle has a 40% chance, then if I'm mass multi-entering, maybe to give myself a limit on the chalk, those are where I'll stop and set my max exposures. Now, get to a couple quicks. Mr. Hustle, 2 favorite plays under 7K. I like that question. So, guys, I'm going to throw that out to both of you here. Brady, 2 favorite plays under 7K. And I'm happy he said under 7K because fuck Suarez. Under 7K.
Obviously, depending on your lineup, but if we're just talking GPP,
2 favorites.
Obviously, Hamrick has a lot of speed. He starts 16th, which is probably enough to put a lot of people off of him, but I think he probably has at least top 15, and he showed top 10 speed in practice. So Hamrick, and just from a pure leverage perspective, I'd say Bubba Wallace, another guy that I think could flirt with a top 10, but should be in the top 15 most of the day.
Perfect. Now, guys, I'm going to go to Taco with the same question, but again, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff, whatever you're doing, so that we know that you're out there. And if you want us to keep doing these for the Cup Series publicly, we need to know that you're out there watching and checking this out, or we just throw it behind the paywall as we have done for many years. So make sure you're doing that. Taco, favorite 2 under 7K. We already talked. Obviously, Brady already mentioned Hamrick and
Custer
Bubba. Ain't no
Busher.
burger better than a Bubba. Ain't no burger better than a Bubba.
Custer Busher.
By the way, Bubba burgers suck. Don't buy them. Nothing to do with Bubba Wallace, but I've had those burgers. They're terrible. Hamrick and Buscher for you. Yeah, and I'm gonna throw.
I think Custer and Buscher, but I mean, you already took Hamrick. I was gonna say Hamrick.
That's the group. So I'm with you. I think if you're under 7K, for me, it's I agree. I mean, it's Hamrick, Custer, Buscher, and Bubba. And the only other name that really I would throw in there is Dylan. Again, not because Dylan looked good at all. He looked like shit, but it's just Ty Dillon, and he's one of these names that you never want to sleep on. And if I had to go below him, it's always going to be Colo for me. Corey LaJoie.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know you don't like D.Ham for Denny Hamlin. Can I do D.Hem for Daniel Hamrick or
no? D-Ham. Oh gosh,
from Hamlin. No, Brady hates it. He does not like any sort of nicknames.
Before we sign off, I do have, they're talking about Reddick to the rear. Obviously has some impact on his stage 1 performance, but I don't think race-wide Reddick to the rear matters too much. Real quick on Bodog for Canadians, Bovada for some American sites. Stage 1 head-to-head, Bowman over Stenhouse Jr. I think is a good play. You can get that at -115. I think they're overreacting to Ricky Stenhouse's run last week. And I didn't see any speed out of Ricky Stenhouse besides his qualifying lap. Did see a lot of speed out of Bowman, so I like stage 1 head-to-head, Bowman above Stenhouse, and for all the same reasons.
Is that
stage 1?
It's a great catch.
Any chance this is on DraftKings also?
I don't know if Bovada has kind of been leading the charge with motorsports odds recently, so I don't know if
DK hasn't had many stage props.
We had that one week where I found
we had it a few times, and then it disappeared, at least on my state. But I guess different states are different.
Taking too much money from DraftKings. These guys are losing money.
You can get stage 1 winner, but no head-to-heads. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, I didn't find it. So
I will get top 20 this week on DraftKings. That confused the hell out of me. They just took that from me.
And real quick, the same site, Bovada/Bodog, stage 1 head-to-head, Byron over Cindric. I think they're reacting to Cindric's qualifying lap. I think he starts like 3rd. I think Byron will get by him pretty quick. Obviously, Vegas can get weird with like how long runs play out, so we could get some weird pit stops. But if we're going purely off speed, I think those are 2 good plays.
Dooley's asking what you look for when you're live betting the race, and that's definitely a Brady question, as you are the master of live betting.
It's hard to explain. Obviously, I'm keeping a really close eye on lap times, which are available on NASCAR.com. If you go to NASCAR.com and go to the race center, you can watch lap times lap by lap. So I'm always looking for guys who are showing speed not correlated with their position. So if a guy's running 6, but he's turning top 2 lap times, that's always going to start to the process of me getting towards the bet. And once I notice that, I go, okay, is he on new tires? Is he on a different pit strategy? Is he a guy we know is going to fade at the end of this run for this reason? And if I get down this checklist of things, that's when I make a bet. But it's always looking for speed not correlated with their running position, because I feel like the live betting NASCAR markets are strictly based on track position. They adjust numbers based on where they're running on track and not necessarily their speed. And that goes the other way too. If the first place guy is running 6th place lap times, that's a trigger for me. Like, okay, he's not gonna keep the lead. Who's gonna take it? And that's how but it's all just speed not correlated with track position.
I love it. It's a lot of paying attention to statistics in race, during the race. And yes, we did talk about Hamrick to the back. Ignore Reddick to the back.
Except for stage 1 props.
Yeah, and we get one more question in. Yes, Hamrick is viable on FanDuel. Listen, FanDuel...
Hamrick is more viable on FanDuel.
Yeah, FanDuel de-emphasizes track position at the start of the race for finishing position, and Hamrick's super cheap on FanDuel and could finish really well if he could finish really, really well if his car is as good as it appears. Unfortunately, Mortgage Guy Ryan, I haven't looked at Prize Picks at all. I don't know what the props are. So there probably is based on what we've just broken down, but man, I didn't even know Prize Picks was doing NASCAR. That makes me actually really interested to check it out. There's too many things. Super Draft like really stands out with the projections as well this week, even though it's probably full at their tiny little contest. But they really stand out as far as some certain drivers. Really, like you got to play Kyle as your captain on Super Draft.
One more real quick. Check your book, whatever book you use. Some books still have Christopher Bell to win stage 1 at plus 850, which is just a value play. I think he's probably should be the second favorite. Obviously, Larson's probably most likely, but I like Christopher Bell just based on probably a donation, but based on that number. If you can get Christopher Bell to win stage 1 at plus 850 or better, I think it might be worth it.
Let me ask you this. If we're able to, on Sharp app, we have props comparison across multiple books. So it's part of what we do with the Sharp app is, when you look at props for players across different books, it's really hard to find them because you've got to go to DraftKings and Fanduel and all these different sites and search. And it takes like 10 clicks per site to find the prop that you're looking for. And it's something we do for most sports, but we don't have NASCAR on there yet. Brady, how useful of a tool would that be for your game if you were able to just quickly pop onto like the Sharp app and, go to props for NASCAR and see all the differences across all these different sites to know where to go? Is that a tool you've been needing and wanting, but just don't have?
I think it's certainly a useful tool. The best part of my Sunday morning is loading up all the sports book and digging around to see what I can find. So I don't know if you'll ever pull me off that, but for people that don't live and breathe this stuff and willing to spend 4 hours on a Sunday morning doing this shit, certainly something that could be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I ain't spending 4 hours. I'm trying to find the Cooper Cup scores the touchdown prop for the playoff games, and I'm about to pull the trigger on DraftKings because I'm like lazy about looking around. I'm like, wait a second, let me use this, and it's like, holy shit, FanDuel is minus 180, DraftKings is minus 220. I could save all this money, so make my $100 or my $200. Like the differences in these props are drastic across different books. So quickly bringing it all together for me, so I don't have to sit there with a pen and paper, write that shit down. But
nothing better than finding arbitrage too.
NASCAR is very difficult to pull that out. We're probably a long way away because data for NASCAR contests is just not readily available, and the prop data isn't readily available. It's gonna be a bit, but that's something
we only just started getting live in race betting like a few years ago,
and
it's still coming along.
There's still no true one market maker for NASCAR. Like for football, Circa, Pinnacle, Bet Online to some extent, they kind of set the market and everybody just follows. They're all over the place with NASCAR, which makes it so lucrative at times. Is because
that's why I think it's so great. That's what I'm saying. Like if we were able to see the differences, you could quickly identify them. But that'll be cool.
NASCAR's still a little green right now.
Definitely cool down the road. All right, let's wrap it up here, guys. Race is coming up. I think it's a 350, 340 start. Darren's asking who's winning. Oh, win predictions. You ready? Let's just do it. I mean, I think Larson is winning this race. I know it's not a sexy pick, but that's who I'm going with. Brady, who's winning the race?
I agree with you with Larson, but that's a boring pick. If I could go on a limb, I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick. I'm still pretty bullish on him. I was so impressed with him last week, and I don't think we're reacting enough to how impressive what he did last week was.
Love that. Taco, what about you? Who's winning?
I like it a lot.
Reddick?
This man has finished 5th 5 times. I think it's time for him to win here. Give me Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, that's a good pick too.
Blaney. There you go. Blaney, Reddick, but of course, it'll probably be Larson. All right,
probably Kyle Larson.
Yeah, it's probably.
I mean, gun in my head, that's Kyle Larson all day.
Yeah, we don't want to. Say
that's easy.
I took the easy way out because what the hell do I know? All right, let's wrap it up there, boys. Good luck today. Make your lineups. Keep your mind active. And good luck finishing strong. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that shit that you're supposed to do on a YouTube channel to make us want to do this again. So we will see you guys hopefully next time with another NASCAR breakdown. Good luck today, everyone. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.